animosity built up after a little while?
Sure.
And we think that God's not going to feel the same as we do. He says, I've remembered what you've done. Verse 22, until Adonai could no longer bear it, so evil and so detestable were your deeds. This is why your land has become a wasteland, an object for astonishment and cursing, uninhabited as it is today. 23, it is because you offered incense, sinned against Adonai, didn't listen to what Adonai said, and didn't live by his Torah, regulations, and instructions, that this disaster has befallen you as it is today. Ezekiel chapter 8. Starting at verse 3 says, the form of a hand was put out which took me by the lock of my hair, and the Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven and brought me in these visions from God in Jerusalem to the entrance of the inner courtyard gate that faces north. He's talking about the temple. There stood the idol that arouses God's jealousy and provokes his zealous indignation. There before me was the glory of the God of Israel, as in the vision I had seen in the valley. Then he said to me, human being, raise your eyes toward the north. I raised my eyes toward the north and saw, north of the altar gate, this image that arouses God's jealousy in the entryway. He asked me, human being, do you see what they are doing, the horrible, disgusting practices that the house of Israel is committing here, so that I must distance myself from my own sanctuary? But you will see even worse abominations. He brought me to the entrance of the courtyard, and when I looked, I saw a hole in the wall. Hole in the wall.
Oh, that's right.
He said to me, human being, dig into the wall. After digging in the wall, I saw a door. Go in, he said, and see the wicked practices they are engaged in here. So I went in and looked, and there carved in the walls all around were every kind of reptile, repulsive animal, along with all the idols of the house of Israel. Standing in front of them were 70 of the leading men of the house of Israel. In the center stood Yazaniah, the son of Shaphan. Each man had his incense burner in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Then he said to me, human being, did you see what the leaders of the house of Israel were doing in the dark? Each one in a room of his own carved image, because they say, Adonai can't see us. Adonai has left the land. He also said to me, you will see even worse abominations that they are doing. He brought me to the entrance of the north gate to Adonai's house, and there before me were women weeping for Tammuz. Human being, he asked me, have you seen this? You will see practices even more disgusting than these. Who is Tammuz?
That was her son, wasn't it?
That was her son. Also, you need to understand that her and her son kind of loved each other a little bit. Done things that they ought not to have done together. He brought me to the inner courtyard of Adonai's house, and there at the entrance of the temple of Adonai, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs toward the temple of Adonai and their faces toward the east, and they were worshiping the sun toward the east. So who's the sun god? Nimrod. So they're in the house of God worshiping Nimrod. He asked me, human being, have you seen this? Does the house of Yehuda consider it a casual matter that they commit the disgusting practices they are committing here, thus filling the land with violence, provoking me still more? Look, they are even putting the branch to their nose. Therefore I will act in fury, my eye will not spare, I will have no pity. Even if they cry loudly right in my ears, I will not listen to them. And so here's my thing. Here's my take. we're in the presidential election now. America over the last 8 or more years has just continually gone down the toilet. They have continually, especially the last 8 years, thumbed their nose at God, said we're going to do what we want to do. And I hate to throw this part in, but you've got churches who refuse to follow God's instructions. And we still say that everything is good, all the while some pastors are behind pulpits, banging the pulpit, talking about the condition of America, and all the while they refuse to do the things that God says do and expect God to bless it when they refuse to follow his instructions. And there in Jeremiah, he says, this is why your land is a wasteland. Because you're worshiping all these other things. Here in America, it's pretty good if you worship yourself. It's all about me. What can I get? What can I do? What can I take? What can you give me? Instead of paying attention to God. So even in Ezekiel, he says, even if they cry loudly right in my ears, I will not listen to them. We know what these are? Easter eggs. Do you know that Jesus carried around Easter eggs? That's what they got to do with the resurrection. Called Ishtar eggs. How does the resurrection of Yeshua have anything to do with eggs that were once dipped in the blood of infants at the altar of fertility goddess Ishtar? That's
Is that why people paint eggs? Is that why they color
Yep.
eggs? I did not know that.
I didn't either.
Mm-hmm.
We colored eggs for years when I was a kid.
I remember the little tablets used to get.
Oh, yeah.
You put in
You
vinegar.
put in vinegar and water.
You see, that smell would be through the house. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't know
You
that.
put your little dipper.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, back then when you were a kid, when you didn't know any better, and hopefully your parents didn't know any better, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
To spend the night dipping those
We
eggs.
all
and
dyed
little-
eggs.
Actually, in our tradition in our family, and I don't know where it began from, we did take eggs, but we didn't boil them, hard boil them, or anything. We took painstakingly, they would crack the top, take the egg out, empty it out, rinse it out, put it in trays, or, what they came in. And then a day or two before Easter, they would take those, dip them in coloring, and then fill them with confetti, and then take tissue paper and dampen it and put it over the top so it would hold the tissue paper. And some of them would put money or jelly beans or something. And he would take these eggs, and I don't know where this practice started from. On the Easter egg hunt, that's what you're supposed to be doing. So you'd either get money or jelly beans, but to find out what you get reward, you had to crack them over somebody's head. So everyone would be filled with confetti. You'd be running after my cousins and everybody, cracking eggs over your head, and then looking to see if you got anything. Oh, that's kind of sadistic.
Well, okay, Herb, we can answer this question now on why your people don't get it. Okay? Right here. We may have discussed this before, but we have told the Jewish people, you've got to give this stuff up. So we're going to ask you, because Passover has got nothing to do with Yeshua. So you don't need Passover anymore, which you and I both know that Passover is loaded with symbolism about who Yeshua was.
Mm-hmm.
So you give that up, and we're going to replace that with Easter, which absolutely has nothing to do with Yeshua. And we're going to let you hunt Easter eggs.
Crack them over
No,
your
but
cousin's
Jewish
head.
Crack them over your cousin's head.
Jewish people don't do that now.
No, but I'm just saying.
They were severely chastised.
But you know, here's the sad thing, though. A Jewish person could do this.
Oh yeah, I've
And
done
they'd
it.
still be Jewish.
I've done it.
But
Not
if
knowing-
a Jewish
Not
person
knowing all this, I've done it.
to your real Orthodox Jews, the staunch hardliners, because you're a Christian now, you're no longer Jewish in their eyes.
I still like jelly beans.
Yeah, well, you get one before you leave. I'm sure somebody's got
I
one.
did get one from your son. Somebody's son maybe one.
Okay.
He's a little joker.
Where did the Ishtar egg originate? The egg was a sacred symbol among the Babylonians. They believed an egg, a wondrous size, fell from heaven into the Euphrates River.
Mm-hmm.
From this marvelous egg, the goddess, yes, also known as Semiramis or Ishtar, where we get the name Easter from, was supposed to have hatched.
Nice.
Which came first, Ishtar or the egg?
The egg is.
Going
But there is
back.
an egg in the Passover.
Egg is rabbinical.
Rabbinical.
It's,
Okay.
Jesus didn't eat an egg.
Right. It's rabbinical.
So
Okay.
there were even some Messianics. I know Messianics will have an egg on their Seder plate. But that egg in itself is pagan. With it being on the Passover plate, we've had them on our Passover plate.
And not.
Huh?
And not knowing the egg was pagan.
Yeah, I mean, because the egg represents what? The sacrifice? Life?
Yeah.
Thus, the egg came to symbolize the goddess Easter. Why did the church adopt Easter?
They didn't read the Old Testament.
Right. The original community of believers was predominantly Jewish, as was the Messiah and the apostles. The believers had a full understanding of Torah, the prophets, and followed the God-ordained feast and Shabbat. As the community of believers grew, the number of Gentiles increased much faster than Jews. These Gentile believers had little or no knowledge of the Torah and the prophets. As time passed, Greek Hellenized thought and mythology began to be incorporated into church beliefs, and that's true. The Bar Kokhba revolt in 135 CE left the Jews as enemies of Rome, and the church moved swiftly to distance itself from the Roman persecution of the Jewish remnant. As the church separated itself from the Hebrew root, it was grafted into. Pagan practices began to quickly infiltrate it. With the victory of Constantine in the early 4th century, the paganization of the church accelerated rapidly and was given the official state seal, protected and enforced by law. Overnight, pagan temples became churches, and former pagan priests became Christian priests. Statues of Jupiter became Peter. Others represented other saints. The Council of Nicaea and Imperial Edict sealed pagan practices, with Shabbat now being outlawed, replaced by a day to honor the sun god called Sunday, not to honor Messiah, and the resurrection celebration, originally 3 days after Passover, moved to the pagan celebration of Easter. Constantine, in fact, was a sun worshiper, professing Christianity for political reasons. He professed allegiance to Messiah, was in reality a faith based on Mithra, or Tammuz. Your Roman soldiers were the Babylonian stuff who put the cross over their heart. Your Roman soldiers, Mithra was their god, and they would put the cross on the forehead of the ashes. His edict made Sunday the official day of worship, as in the Dies Solis, name of the invincible sun god. I don't know why I put that there.
Because that's what they were doing. They were mixing Christ in with it.
Okay, right. Okay. Somehow